Hi, BookTube. Good to see you again. I have a tag that I'm going to do for you today. It's been a little bit. It's been actually quite a little bit since we've last seen each other's faces, and that's owing mainly to the fact that I recently started working as a morning baker at a local bakery. So I've been on the grind early and, reading when I can. But I think that it's time to return and talk about some books. So I'm doing the Reading Tics Tag today, thanks to Steve Donahue, who made a great video on that. And let's just jump right in. Question 1 is, do you only read at a specific time of day? This is interesting right now in my life because on the days that I have off, I have a great period of time in the morning to read because I wake up for work at 3 a.m. Morning baker job, you got to make all the bagels and croissants and things like that. And so I've shifted my entire schedule to be basically so that I wake up at 3 and go to bed at 5 every day, even the days that I don't work. And so on the days that I don't work, I'm often cognizant and awake at, let's say, around 4 a.m. ready to read. So I just read then until the sun comes up, which is a really great reading time that I've never had before because I've never woken up this early regularly before, unless I was doing like hiking that was just required weird alpine starts. So yeah, that 4 a.m. to sunrise stretch is really amazing. Around 45 minutes before sunrise, the sky will start to lighten and the birds will start to sing. You can start to hear the world's kind of waking up. And it's really, really great to be alive at that part of the day, and I haven't really experienced that feeling very often in my life, and certainly with so much awareness and kind of deliberation. When I'm reading, I'm really focused on the book, of course, but then when the birds start chirping and the sky starts lightening, I kind of like my eyes lift and it's all happening. So that time of day is the time of day I read. Besides that, I try to read before I go to bed if I'm not too tired. Of course, when I come home from work, I work for around 10 hours. It's pretty hard to focus. I just kind of zonk out immediately, but I read right there in my bed underneath the bird with my lamp that I've put a bag around so that the light isn't so like harsh when it's kind of directly above me. So yeah, right before I go to bed and right when I wake up for a couple of hours. And then in the middle of the day, I'm normally working on my music or other like projects and animations and things like that. So that's question 1. Question 2 is, do you prefer to read in your work/everyday clothes, or are you partial to reading in PJs or comfy clothes? Right now, I'm very partial to being totally layered up because it's very chilly here in Alabama. I can actually show you. It's a nice overcast day out here. And I got some books. And there's the Great Wave off Kanagawa. So I'm pretty partial to the PJs. I feel more industrious in general when I put on clothes, and so maybe when I put on proper clothes, So maybe I am more susceptible to falling into I'm going to read, I'm going to be deliberate about it when I'm not in PJs, where I can kind of flow from thing to thing more easily. But naturally, I love just being covered in blankets and robes and loose-fitting clothing. That's kind of where I am. Of course, I got this puffy on right now just because it's very chilly. But yeah, question 2. 3 is, what is your favorite reading spot? Couch, chair, bed, outdoors, somewhere else. That space in the morning, that 4 a.m. slot, I either read in one of two places. One is in front of a fireplace where I kind of build a wood fire if we have firewood or if it's cold enough, and that is amazing. That's just an amazing reading spot. Of course, you're just by a fire. And the second place is in kind of a little like office back space we have on a couch, and that particular space is great because it has a large window facing east, so I can really see the sunrise. It's also a little elevated, so I have a view of this ridge, a hill with, you can see like a water tower and a bunch of trees and a couple of private houses, and it's a nice little kind of skyline canvas from which to see just the lightning sky and the golden rays, and that's wonderful. And the fireplace is, of course, just an amazing reading spot, but having a fire is something you have to manage, and I love that about fires, especially about real wood fires, is that you take care of them. They're living, breathing, literally breathing things. They're just sucking in oxygen. And that's wonderful, but it's, of course, distracting when you're reading. And then, of course, the center burns really hot, and so all the logs burn from the center, collapse, and then fall outwards. And then you have to, bring those logs into the center with a, obviously a stoker, or, and so, yeah, the fireplace is good, but of course it's more of a general cozy experience more than it is a dedicated reading experience, just because you get distracted. But those two spots, and then, of course, like I said, my bed. Okay, question 4 is, do you snack while reading, or is that a no-go? In general, no, I try not to. It's nice, kind of like the fire thing, where if I'm snacking and reading, it's more that I'm going for an experience that is more cozy, and I don't even know how to really put it into words, but it's not a pure reading experience. It's more about, I like the feeling of being here with a book and eating something. I just feel very safe, and whatever that feeling is, that's nice. I think that is good, but in general, I enjoy everything more if I just give my awareness and attention to one thing at a time. That's something in general I try to work on, especially these days, especially with food for me, because I'm such a not foodie. I've had my whole life basically just dietary problems and allergies and sensitivities, and so I've never been super into food. And when I eat, I do it quickly and normally not even focusing on it, even if I'm not doing anything else, or if I am doing something else, then I just focus on that. So, but I'm trying to change that. I'm trying to give more attention to food, especially since working at this bakery, because I'm making lots of delicious items that I can try and hopefully appreciate better. So, but I don't snack while reading. It's just not my thing. Question 5. Do you or have you ever peeked at the end of a book, or do you avoid spoilers at all costs? There's a person in my life who does this regularly, and I think it's just a little bit strange and ridiculous. Just peeking at the end of the book. I won't say that the end of a book is the point or the most important part of the book. I sort of think about music, what I think Alan Watts said. Sorry, I sort of think about books, what I think Alan Watts said about music, which is that music is playful. It doesn't have a point. If the point were the ending, then the best composers would be the ones who put the final chord at the very beginning, bang, and then it's over. So of course the end of the book is not all that important, but the end of the book is the end of the book. I try to save it and not think about it. I do try to avoid spoilers if I can. I'm reading a lot of classics these days. That's kind of what excites me and what I want to read, just to try to make my way through the canon. So it's what are you going to do? I mean, you're going to read these classics that have been around and are super famous for 1,000 years and not get it spoiled. It almost feels ridiculous to even talk about that. But yeah, it is kind of nice not really knowing what you're getting into. It's almost like you can be, for instance, I have Tale of Genji here. Of course, that's what I'm reading. And you can almost be a person in, maybe 11th century Japan or 13th century reading it for the first time. You can kind of imagine what that would have been like if you don't know the full story. So I try to avoid it. Plus, a little anecdote is that I read Anna Karenina when I was a senior in high school. And in the middle of the book, when I was just in the heart of loving it, I looked up some minor question about a character, who is, or whatever, trying to figure it out. And one of the Google frequently asked questions was just a question that spoiled the book. Why did blank 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 happen? And the thing that happened there was a huge spoiler. And I was pretty sad. It didn't ruin the book. Obviously, it's Anna Karenina. It didn't ruin the book. But if I had gotten to that part of the book without knowing and was reading, I would have been oh, this is crazy. But instead, I knew. So I like to avoid spoilers. So it goes. Question 6 is, do you prefer first person or third person narrative, or do you care? At this point in my life, I don't care. But when I was younger, I liked the first person for some reason. I don't know exactly why, but I think it has something to do with Percy Jackson, because Percy Jackson was in first person, and I thought he was really cool, in not a cool way, but I thought he was just the kind of person I would want to be, the kind of cool that I would want to be growing up. And so that first person thing really attracted me. Other fantasy books like Harry Potter are in third person. And I think because Harry Potter's style is a little bit less energetic, I don't want to call it stilted, but the writing is more frank. I thought that third person was always kind of a little bit more this is the worst way to put it, but more boring. And first person was always more exciting because Percy Jackson just is like a vibrant personality. But of course, growing up and reading more books, I've discovered that's not true, and that there's lots of third person narratives that are extremely exciting, and a lot of first person books that are pretty boring. So yeah, just comes down to the style of the author. I think it really depends mostly on what suits the story, what's right for this story. And for the most part, third person probably suits it better just because you don't have to be limited by a person's perspective. But first person also gets into some really cool psychological things about their voice and who they are. And of course, blending them can be, well, for one thing, first person writers often blend them unintentionally, and then the first person narrator becomes omniscient in a way that doesn't seem to work. But sometimes it does work when that happens. But anyways, question 7. Do you read dedications, author's notes, acknowledgments, or do you skip those? I try to read them every time if I can. Tale of Genji-wise, if I were to go to a random page, I actually just went to a page. This page doesn't have notes on it, which is very rare. This page does. Most of the pages look like this, except they're not backwards. I don't read this book backwards, actually. And it has a bunch of notes at the bottom, and I read all of those because they really, really make me enjoy the book more. A lot of the speakers in Tale of Genji allude to other poems or to mythological stories or just folk tales. It's kind of the way people communicate in this book, and it's really beautiful, but I don't know almost any of those stories, naturally, being an American in the 21st century. And so having those poems just there at the bottom of the page really heighten my enjoyment of the book. And they're really good, and they're well translated, and you start to kind of build your own mental mythos. You kind of have your own Japanese history persona. One allusion that comes up in the Tale of Genji a lot that I love, that I would love to incorporate into my own personal lingo, is this story of a logger, some kind of, what's the proper term? Lumberjack, walking through the forest, and he comes upon two gods, two spirits, playing Go in the middle of the forest. He's walking, swinging his axe, and he comes upon these people, and he just rests and he watches them play, and it's so utterly fascinating because these are two deities with hyper intelligence just playing a beautiful game, and he's completely absorbed in this. And of course, the time comes for him to leave, and he goes on, and he finds that the wood of his axe has rotted away, and all he's left with is the metal handle. And he walks to the village that he's from, and centuries have passed, generations gone. And it's such a fascinating, strange, sad, harrowing story. And frequently in the Tale of Genji, things happen that are so focused and energized and concentrated in the book. And Murasaki Shikabu will say something along the lines of, one's axe handle could easily rot away witnessing this. Just to heighten that feeling of, oh my gosh, what's happening right now? You could lose your whole life just by getting lost in this kind of activity, whatever it is. There are things in life that happen like that where you're watching and you feel like time slips away and generations could pass and you wouldn't notice. Anyways, that's an example of a cool illusion that's a note in this book. So notes, at least in this version of this book, are great. I generally do read introductions. If I feel like an introduction is really bad, then sometimes I'll skip it. For instance, I have a lot of my books around me, like right here on this little desk I have this Burton Raffle translation of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, and I read his introduction. I really didn't like it. It's like 40 pages long, 40 pages long, and it is mostly comprised of his complaints about other critics and translators misinterpreting the work and him pretty obtusely forwarding his own opinion without defending it in a way that is really argumentative and negative. And it's a very unpleasant beginning to a book that is otherwise very joyful and playful. And I thought, reading it, that this guy has no fun in his heart, and there's no way this translation can work, but it was amazing. I loved this translation, and I love this cover, as I've shown you, I believe, before. So sometimes translations end up being a bit of a bummer, but introductions, can be a bummer. But that's just the way it goes. And I think it's worth reading, especially for these books that are old, like Tale of Genji, that need some kind of historical context. Okay, next question is, do you have a favorite reading beverage? For me, just a glass of water nearby, nothing like it. Or is Steve watching this video? I'll hold off just in case. And question 9. How do you decide what to read next? TBR, mood, goals, random choice, and so on. I don't really have a method in determining what my next book will be. I generally go for what excites me, just to think about. And at this phase in my life, getting into reading sort of the first time, this is kind of year 1 of my reading life. What is exciting me are classics that also have some sort of appeal / connection to my own personal life or personality. So I draw from, I just, watch a bunch of BookTube videos or read online about what are the, members of the canon, Western or greater canon. Tale of Genji, I guess, is the greater canon, whatever that is. And the ones that kind of spark, like, oh, yeah, I really would like that. I think I would really be into that. For instance, Tale of Genji, because of my connection with Anbi, sparked, and also I love just the idea of a really long book that's very aesthetic. Those kinds of things make me want to read them. So Moby Dick, of course, just seemed an adventurous nautical thing. Of course, it turned out to be very different. I got kind of baited and switched, but I loved it anyways. And I think I'm going to read the Iliad and the Odyssey next, just because how can you describe it? I've read those books before, and I really loved them, but I feel like now is the time to really dig in. I think that I just kind of go by instinct. There's so many books. I mean, of course, there's just so many books, period, but there's so many books in the canon that I know that I probably won't get to unless I dedicate my whole life to reading for a couple of years. So I want to be deliberate about it and only do the ones that I'm excited to read, and not books that I feel like I should read or I have to read. I don't really feel like I should. Well, I don't really feel like I have to read anything if I'm being honest with you. But I feel really compelled and excited to read a lot of things. So that's kind of the way I feel about how I'm going to decide my next book. Is just kind of the old feelies. And question 10 is tag others. So I don't really know who I should tag, because I don't know who's done this. This might be a bit of a late entry into this tag. So if you're watching this video and you want to do it, please do it, and then send me an email or tag me in your video or whatever. I don't even know how that works, but yeah, just shoot me a message somehow and I'll watch it, and we'll all get along in our weird bookish tags. So yeah, I guess that's my Reading Tics tag. I hope you all enjoyed watching this. It's sub 20 minutes, which is rare for me, even though I know I'm speaking rather quickly. So thank you so much for watching. I hope I can see you all soon again. Maybe I'll do some kind of reading update video for Tale of Genji, or perhaps The Brothers Karamazov, which I'm pausing on right now, but exactly halfway through and loving. So yeah, thank you so much. I hope you all are staying warm out there in a bit of a dreary wind. Oh, squirrel just jumped from tree branch to tree branch. I wish y'all could have seen that. That was an elegant leap. Anyways, I hope y'all have a great day. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, BookTube. Bye-bye.